Yeah, just to explain what's happened here, we've had a vote just in the last minute or so that's gone against the government. They plan to rush through approval of their Brexit deal in just 3 days, and in the last moment or so, the Parliament has said that's too quick. They're not happy with the timetable, the schedule laid out by the government. That essentially means the government has lost control of the Brexit approval process inside Westminster House of Commons. And what it could mean is, as they've threatened earlier today, they will now essentially yank all of that legislation and try to move for a general election. What they'd done last Saturday, if I can give you the details, was be forced to request an extension of the October 31st deadline. They've asked the Europeans for that extension, and now because of this vote tonight, there's a good possibility the Europeans will come back and say, we will grant you that extension. The question then, how long is that extension going to be? If it's just a couple of weeks, the government might try and continue with their plans to get this deal through. If it's much longer, till the end of January, as Parliament mandated the request consist of, then it could mean we get a general election by the end of this year. We'll wait to hear what the government response is in the next few minutes, guys.
So, Willem, if you can boil it down for us, in terms of the likelihood of a deal, Willem, we're going to listen to Boris Johnson right now.
The withdrawal agreement, let alone abolish the backstop. That is indeed what they were saying. And certainly nobody thought that we could secure the approval of the House for a new deal. And we should not overlook the significance of this moment. And I pay particular tribute to those members of the House who were sceptical and who had difficulties and doubts and who decided to place the national interest ahead of any other consideration. But, Mr. Speaker, I must express my disappointment that the House has again voted for delay, rather than a timetable that would have guaranteed that the UK would be in a position to leave the EU on October the 31st with a deal. And we now face further uncertainty, and the EU must now make up their minds over how to answer Parliament's request for a delay. And the first consequence, Mr. Speaker, is that the government must take the only responsible course and accelerate our preparations for a no-deal outcome. But secondly, I will speak to EU member states about their intentions until they have reached a decision. Until they have reached a decision, I must say, we will pause this legislation. And let me be clear. Let me be clear. Our policy remains that we should not delay, that we should leave the EU on October the 31st, and that is what I will say to the EU, and I will report back to the House. And one way or another, we will leave the EU with this deal to which this House has just given its assent. And I thank members across the House for that hard-won agreement.
Point of order, Mr. Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And we've been listening to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson after some key Brexit votes. Let's get back to Willem Marx in London, he's on the ground right now. Willem, what do you make of all this? And judging by the currency's reaction, namely the pound's dive, it looks like the markets believe that a Brexit deal is less likely to happen if we need an extension granted by the EU.
Certainly, it creates a huge deal more uncertainty. If the government timetable had been approved in the last few minutes, they would have sought to Brexit, to leave the EU at the end of this month. Now, because Parliament's saying we need more time to scrutinise the details of this deal, and they've been saying that all afternoon during the debate, it looks like the government has decided not to push ahead with that deadline. They said they will pull this legislation, and potentially it means that the government will try and force a general election. The challenge there is because they don't have a majority. They, on their own, cannot force that election. When they've tried in the last couple of months to push for a general election, the opposition have declined to grant them that possibility. So a huge amount of uncertainty. That may be why we're seeing the pound trade so much weaker in the last few minutes.
Is there a possibility? We just heard Johnson say that he will put forth the possibility that there would be a hard exit come October 31st. Is that an actual possibility, or is that him just saying that?
It's certainly more him just saying that because, of course, it's now up to the EU whether they grant an extension to that deadline. They've been asked for one since Saturday by the Prime Minister, although he didn't want to do so. It will now be up to the other 27 member states to offer that extension. And everything we've heard from people like Angela Merkel over the last few months indicate that they will indeed grant that extension and avoid a no-deal Brexit at the end of this month.